I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to this video edition of the Extra Podcast. Today, we're talking about the economic impact of the coronavirus and the shutdown and the kind of steps and actions that are being taken as the city reopens. And we are joined today by Jennifer Oswalt, CEO of the Downtown Memphis Commission. Jennifer, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, obviously, you as Downtown Memphis Commission, you're not sort of turning the lights on any storefronts or any businesses, but you all are hooked into, in many, many different ways, a lot of downtown businesses, really even stretching into Midtown in terms of some of the tax incentive programs you've done. I don't even know where to start, but one of the things that's very interesting to me to think about downtown, and over the last years that you've been on Behind the Headlines, or we've spoken, or you've spoken in our seminars, it's always been the ever increasing number of projects downtown. Hotels and apartments, and then multiple billion-dollar mixed-use developments and breweries, and this just sort of fantastic. If you're a Memphian and you love Memphis, I'll be not objective for a second. This fantastic parade of new cool projects downtown, and so much of what those projects were about was density, right? It was people living close together, living, working, playing, proximity in offices and entertainment venues and breweries and tap rooms. That's kind of at odds with where we are in this pandemic. So what, just from that point of view, what happens next with downtown?
Yeah, that is a challenge. And I think comparably, I guess, first of all, comparably to some very dense cities, we're not New York. We're not, facing some of the same challenges they are. So I think we're still attractive from that standpoint. The way that we build density, it means a very different thing than in some cities. And we still have plenty of space to walk around. We have great parks throughout Memphis, but especially in downtown that will soon be even better. And so I think those reasons were still very attractive. And honestly, we have a strong population downtown, but it's still a big area. So we're spread out enough where you can walk around, walk down to get your coffee during this time even, and not have to be feeling so tight. I mean, in my neighborhood in Midtown, even it feels even harder to walk around, walk your dog, because everyone's out doing it, and so that's an adjustment everyone has to face, not just downtown. But I think that the reasons people want to live in an active urban environment are still there. You still want to be able to walk and not have to get in your car, enjoy the fresh air, and get the things that you need for your life, as well as the things you want to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think we're certainly thinking more about patios and outdoor space, at least in the interim term. And we already had a lot of good spaces like that. So I think that will increase.
Yeah, and there's already, as the sort of studies, the interim studies, this whole thing, the science on it is so all over the place, just because it's so quick and so new. But there's lots of information coming out that outdoor is so much better than indoor in terms of if you're in a restaurant or a bar or walking. And, whereas the original stay-at-home orders were very much stay at home, there's an increasing number of people saying, no, actually go out.
Yeah.
It's healthier on many levels. Just stay spaced out, but be outside.
Yeah. And honestly, one thing we had faced was a lot of office workers who had been used to sitting at their desk to eat lunch. I think more of them will want to get out and get something just to get out of that office environment for a little bit once we're coming back at a fuller scale. So it could even be, beneficial to shift behavior a little bit.
Do you think offices, so we had on the, I think it was on Behind the Headlines, I'm doing all the shows from here, so they all kind of blur together. Kemp Conrad and Daryl Cobbins, two big commercial real estate people. Yeah, and Kemp it was very interesting about the future of office space and spacing and dividers. But do you worry? Obviously downtown over the last 5 to 10 years, apartments have exploded. Hotels, how many have been built and how many are under construction and how many were planned, and we'll get to that. But office was a little bit more lagging, but it was kind of coming back. Do you worry that's one of the areas that really gets hit? So many people have found that their companies can work from home. Mm-hmm. They may, because of the recession we're going to be in or are in, They may need to cut back on their office space. I mean, is that the area that maybe takes the biggest
Yeah.
hit?
You know, I'm not going to claim to be smart enough to be able to answer
Sure.
that fully. I think that right now we're seeing such a spectrum of responses from people who say we may not come back for a year fully to people who are, you know, ready and ready
Yeah.
just to kind of get back to collaboration. And I think just like you have this fatigue with always being on your screen, even before COVID, it's magnified now where at some point, I think that's going to hit a peak and people are going to want to get back into a meeting where you can speak, you know, where you can pop in and discuss something rather than having to schedule a Zoom call. And it'll fit certain businesses better than others for sure. I mean, if you're a nationwide company and the people you deal with anyway are always somewhere else and you're calling them, I think those businesses will shift and we'll just have to, you know, adjust and attract the folks who need to collaborate more and want
Right.
that type of work environment.
Well, I will say just from my work life, you know, we've been an essential business, the Daily Memphian, and so our office has been open, but very few people have been there. And I've tried, you know, we're trying to distance and all that, but just so happened there were probably 5 of us in the office last Monday and for about 3 hours. And although we stayed probably 18 feet apart, we had the dynamic you just described of just quick drop by conversations and in the 18-foot distant hallway. Mm-hmm. I remember leaving the office after about 3-4 hours and I was like, oh my God, I got so much done. It was so much better just for me personally. And I think we all joked about it later, about all this kind of incidental decisions we were able to make that didn't have to involve a phone call or a full Zoom call or an email. And anyway, so I'm one who believes that this will, economically, people may stay out of their offices, but I think a lot of people are really itching to get back and have that kind of collaborative sort of environment.
Yeah. And I think it was interesting, like Prospero, who had been growing rapidly, a startup, you know, in One Commerce Square, they just signed up for more space. So they were somebody who definitely, I think, could have done their work in a different way, but they know that environment is going to be good for them. So I think we'll see a range, and that's okay because that's how it's probably going to be for real.
Yeah. Where are we? I mean, let's pick some sectors here. And again, I don't expect you to know, I'm not asking you to have a crystal ball exactly what's happening, but there are with hotels, you know, probably 5-6 hotels, something like that under construction right now. Seemed construction never stopped really. It doesn't look like any of it has stopped. Where are we in terms of some of the planned hotels? Lowe's, the $500 million plus one being the biggest. Are those still on track as far as you know? And you all are doing some incentives, I think, with most all of these hotels.
We are, yes. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with Lowe's. It is continuing on schedule, no changes. There's some utility work that has to be done, and that's happening right now. And you probably saw that the trolley stop came down on Main Street right there at the site to prepare for their building. And the only thing that they've said is that there's probably going to be a little bit of delay in the financing, not with their main lender, but with some of the syndicate banks that will be participating in their loan just because of the overwhelmed bank environment at the moment. But their main lender is on board. Now, they're obviously a very strong company that owns their hotels and has a strong Lowe's Corp behind the hotel company, but everything's good. And actually, they've seen their costs come down a little bit, which was helpful because everything always gets designed a little bit over budget. So we were pleased to hear that. And so they're on schedule, still expected to open in 23 at some point. And everything else, I think it was in a good place. You'd rather be in construction on a hotel than actually having to operate one during this time. So
very obvious, very salient point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
But even the one that's closest to being open, the Canopy right there across from Peabody and Redbird Stadium, you know, the developer of that said everything's okay. Their financing is in place. It was actually an automatic turn to permanent financing. And so they're in good shape and planning to open. Some that are in the very earliest stages of development are going to probably be delayed the most. But the others that are far along, such as the Hyatt Centric at One Beale and the second hotel, moving along on schedule. Again, a little bit of delay in financing is probably being made up by more availability on the construction side. So we're not seeing a huge delay, even if, there's a 60 to 90 day delay on the financing side. Yeah. So, and then the other ones like Union Row and the Pinch, they're mixed developments where hotel is a small piece and more of a boutique. And so I haven't heard of any issues on those either because of the mixed component and the timeline. And, they're 2-3 years out. So.
And so, yeah, I was going to go to those next. I mean, the three biggest kind of, the quote unquote $1 billion projects, and that's the full, it wasn't $1 billion on day one ever, but that was, kind of how it gets built. The Union Row project, the land is, I think most all been cleared.
Yeah.
As you come downtown, it's off to your left. Pinch District, there was huge plans there. And then the Snuff District up north of Pinch. Yeah. Have you heard, are any of those at all on hold or ended, or are they full steam ahead?
So I'll talk about Union Row first. It is in great shape. Just a lot of always moving parts with something that big, and they actually own a lot of property or have control of a lot of property that could be part of the first phases, and they're just still working through that. It's just so complex, and it's an opportunity zone fund, so there's a lot of opportunity to do more with it than you have to do, and especially because it's so close to South City, and really working with HCD and the city on trying to ensure that the prosperity that comes from that development spreads into South City. And so there's been a lot of discussion about that makes it seem like it's not quite settled, but really it's just trying to be the best that it can.
And let me orient people to South City, just interrupt, and I apologize for interrupting. So yeah. South City is to the south of the FedEx Forum, the south and really the east. And there were two massive public housing projects that were there that were ultimately torn down, have been progressively being replaced with much more modern mixed use housing. It is really striking to drive by, and it is striking how it is now in that, I think the final phase, the biggest part, where it is reaching right up to the back of the new Wiseacre Brewery.
Yeah.
And that whole sense of what you're talking about, where Union Row goes right up to Beale Street and touches the north side of FedEx Forum. There's an apartments going in between those places. And it is suddenly some of these divisions that we've all sort of taken for granted are breaking down. So keep going.
So a great example is the grocery store. Could they locate that on a more southern parcel and have it really be shared in a walkable way by both neighborhoods? So there's little pieces like that have been moving around, and but they're still on track to start this fall, and in fact will be spending money in 2020 on the project. So there it's more of just what's the best way to capitalize on something that is an opportunity zone and one of the biggest in the country, and in a place where we can really help other Memphians.
Define an opportunity zone. It's not a lowercase opportunity zone or a zone of opportunity. It's actually a federally created program that came part of the tax bill in 2017. So talk about what an opportunity zone involves.
Basically, you can invest in this zone, and it's meant to attract investment near lower income neighborhoods. So there were certain parcels set aside by the governor of each state to qualify, and they had to be in or adjacent to a certain level of income census tract. And you can invest in this and defer, in some cases permanently defer the gain on your investment. So it's a really big deal and a real benefit to getting a project like this done that might not be able to be done without that extra incentive.
Am I right saying, in really kind of Eric vague terms, but general terms, it's not unlike the new market tax credits in some ways, right? Yeah. That drove a lot of development crosstown where I happen to be sitting and living. All kinds of, that new market tax credit made a lot of redevelopment, and Memphis has done a lot of redevelopment of historic structures of otherwise kind of blighted. New market tax credits were a big part of that. This is a variation on that theme.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Let me do this. I want to come back. You've talked a lot about financing. I want to talk a little more about that, but let me do a quick break while we remind you that this podcast is brought to you by FedEx. Possibilities, what we deliver by delivering. This podcast we do every week, sometimes twice a week, but right now we're doing every week, normally focused on arts and culture, but with the coronavirus, we wanted to kind of take the time to focus on the pandemic and the response and reopening. All of our podcasts are on the website. Behind the Headlines, Bill Dries does a politics podcast. Jennifer Biggs does a food podcast. In normal times, we do sports podcasts. Those will come back eventually. They're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. You, prior to, in your past life, you were in finance. You came to Downtown Memphis Commission as the CFO,
Yes.
right? Yeah. And this, I'm curious. I mean, you and I both lived through the 08-09 recession. And it's funny for some of the younger people on staff at the Daily Memphian. One, some of them were in like junior high during that recession, which is horrifying to me on a number of levels. But it is interesting. They don't really know a bad economy and how awful it can be. But also, I'm struck, and you've talked a lot about financing being in place, where that recession was sort of born of Wall Street and other things. But it was the ground zero of it was Wall Street and a breakdown in the banking and investment banking system. This is not. And so the Wall Street, and people talk a lot right now about how Wall Street is up, which is very disconnected from the 35 million unemployment claims and just the catastrophic employment situation across the country and the real economic pain people are feeling. But Wall Street, Paul Krugman from the New York Times, the economist and Nobel laureate, had a thing of saying, like, look, Wall Street wants to make money. They want to find places to put money. The system, they have money because they were actually, the regulations that were put in after 08 and 09, they have money to invest. So they're putting into Wall Street because they got to put it somewhere. Do you think, I mean, again, just on a very general level, because I'm not trying to hold you up to this or that financing package, but do you see that playing out now from your finance background, that the money, the investors, the banking is much more solid than anything like 08, where projects got stopped right in the middle of, the hammer going down?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a health crisis, that caused a economic crisis that we don't know how long that will last because of things like consumer confidence. But the bank side is strong and the fundamentals are there. And, on both sides, not only the reason why people are investing, but also on the availability of funds. And honestly, we're really blessed here in Memphis. We have a lot of local developers who have other businesses. If you think about Carlisle Company, they're in the Wendy's business. You have Billy Orgel.
Carlisle doing one deal, just to clarify.
Yeah, Billy Orgel, who's doing the Snuff District, and it did Tennessee Brewery and others. He has a cell tower business. So you've got folks who have other things to offset this work. And so that's, I think, a real advantage for our local developers. But yes, so far we have not seen a financial reason that a project is struggling as far as not being able to have the equity or any of the pre-work. Now, yes, the banks are drinking through a fire hose right now. So getting them to settle down and really see where their portfolio is and if they're able to invest is challenging for some projects. Or if you're like, let's say the bank is heavily weighted to hotel projects, well, they're probably not going to do another one, but there's other banks, and we don't have this crisis of failing banks and failing investments.
It's a crisis of demand, right? I mean, they're trying to, so that's, I assume that's what you mean by the hotel. Right now, hotels are running at 10% capacity. Yeah. Very unclear when sort of business travel, tourism, people are gonna feel comfortable doing that. Yeah. So they may have the money, but they say, well, there's not gonna be near enough demand.
Yeah, or their portfolio hotels, they're not sure yet who's gonna be the winner and loser of that whole portfolio the bank has. So they're not quite ready to step forward. But other banks who don't have that concentration are fine and they're able to invest, and we're seeing that. And actually, we continue to get a lot of calls on people interested in discussing, the first conversation on projects, which is encouraging. So I think that all the reasons Memphis was attractive before are even amplified now, because we're not one of those big, harder hit cities. I think it's going to be a plus for us, actually.
I sped past a couple of projects. Pinch District, is that on track as far as you know?
So the only issue there is there's so much utility work that has to be figured out and done ahead of time. And the city and county and MLGW are all hyper focused on the health crisis and getting through that. So we do have a delay on that one as far as getting that work underway and really digging in, just because we can't get the focus of all those folks at the moment.
Okay.
But Tom Intertor, who's leading that effort, he's, says he's waiting patiently, but he has not indicated any issues at the moment.
Right. Okay. I wanted to talk for a second about staying with finance, actually. The Downtown Memphis Commission, through its various entities, it's also the Center City Revenue Finance Corp, right, is an affiliate or is underneath DMC, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You all can do tax forgiveness, pilots of a sort. You have done which we've talked about many, many times. They're not tax giveaways. They're yes, you just get you're deferring taxing. Hopefully you're getting more because they're doing, building up a property that otherwise generating very little or no tax revenue. You've done a series of small business forgivable loans, for downtown businesses through the COVID crisis. You also do a fair amount of bonding. Is that right? I mean, do you bond projects for infrastructure, or am I off base on that?
So we are the entity that the city can issue bonds through, the Center City Revenue Finance Corporation, but they are not the obligation of our entity. They're city obligation.
Gotcha.
It's just a financing pass through. We would issue the debt on the Union Road TIF and Lowe's and Pinch, but none of those have happened yet. As far as
issue the debt in the sense that you're going to front some of the development money?
Well, we would be the pass through. It's still the obligation of the developer, but because they are guaranteed by the tax income, it comes through our entity.
Okay.
Much like we did that for Crosstown as well. So occasionally it comes through our entity, but it's either the obligation of the city or the developer. Yeah. The only debt we have is on a parking garage. So, but we're just a entity, we're an industrial development board that you can pass through the debt to allow for the pledge of the taxes.
So I understand you're not obligated on those, but when you talk about the tax revenue paying for them, do you, I mean, you must watch the numbers. I mean, do you worry about the tax revenue supporting the obligation that whether it's the city or developer taking on? Maybe you're blind to that. I don't know how that exactly works, but people in some areas are talking about really, difficult tax situations. Sales tax is way down. Mm-hmm. Who knows what's going to happen with property taxes, mm-hmm. tourism way down, hotel taxes way down. I mean, is that something that you all are obsessing over, or is that really something probably the city and the developers are assessing?
Yeah, I think at this point, no one is planning on a big reduction in tax rate or revenue. The sales tax is a huge issue for the city's budget, which impacts us just because it puts more on us to do for the downtown area, and it puts more pressure on any project that might get a tax incentive to get approved because, there's just that pain there. But if this does turn out to be more of a shorter term problem, I don't see any property tax issue at the moment. Now we won't know how it affects assessments until the next assessment year. And I think that could be an issue. Yeah. So our plan is to try to get as much under development so that, it can balance out a reduction in rate or assessment should that happen.
I jumped right over the small business loans, the forgivable loans. Talk about that program, and is that program still underway?
So the first thing we did when this hit hard was really touch base with all of our projects, people who already had development loans in place, and see if they were okay, needed any help to complete their project or maybe a few months of deferral. We worked with the city of Memphis, who is the landowner for all the Beale Street properties, and got them to abate rent and CAM charges for a few months for Beale Street businesses. And then we did offer a forgivable loan to downtown businesses up to $5 million in revenue. And the offer was from $5,000 to $20,000. However, it was based on revenue and need, and you had to show us a plan of how you were going to kind of get through this crisis. StartCo partnered with us to help a lot of these businesses on a plan and a strategy to get through the current time, as well as be positioned better in the future should something like this happen again. we were able to award $260,000 to 46 businesses, and we had a great experience with our downtown community where not any of the businesses took the maximum amount available to them. They all took just what was enough to get them through, and we were able to help more businesses that way. And so we are really proud of our community for doing that and really helping us to award more. But we did raise it from an initial 200 to 260. Our board authorized that. And we really think that it not only helped some of the micro businesses who were never going to apply for federal aid, they were too small or didn't have the capacity, to some of the bigger ones who could apply but really needed this lifeline to help them stop and not panic and get through the process of applying and getting that funding. So we were able to award and pay out the grant within a month, by the end of April, which, I think was really helpful to some of the businesses who really couldn't see to the other side of that month.
And are you still taking applications on that, or was that?
No, it is closed.
Yeah.
And we're continuing to watch and see what might be needed going forward. But I think the best thing we can do going forward is just bring customers and help on the consumer confidence side, showing how downtown is a clean and welcoming place despite of this, and helping the businesses instill that confidence in the process. And also just reminding, everyone around Memphis that used to come downtown and now has a million choices that they haven't been to in a long time. And so just reminding them that downtown has a lot of fun things to do, even without our sports and festivals at the moment.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for joining us. A reminder that this podcast is brought to us by FedEx Possibilities, what they deliver by delivering. And again, you can get the extra podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or all of them are available on the Daily Memphian site. Thank you for joining us.